Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Beckwith. And if you're like me, you probably wonder what configuration the Arctic sea ice will be in when we have the so-called blue ocean event. I coined the term blue ocean event many years ago to be when the Arctic Ocean basically has less than 1 million square kilometers of ice. So the assumption is that that ice that's left would be the thickest and hardest ice that's piled up just north of Greenland and the Canadian archipelago, and then filtering in among the islands in that region. And that's probably the case. In fact, a new paper has just come out called Revisiting the Last Ice Area Projections from a High-Resolution Global Earth System Model. So that's going to be the focus of this video, this peer-reviewed paper. And I've also wondered if, because the ice in the Canadian archipelago is much further south, if it has severe breakup and starts getting mobile, it can actually flow down through the islands and maybe clear out sooner than we imagine. And then maybe the last remnants of ice would be swirling around right at the North Pole because it's, colder there, being higher further north, higher latitude. So I don't know, it's probably going to be in the Canadian archipelago, but I'm just throwing that out there that it could be, circling the North Pole for, for a crazy idea. Okay, so let's talk about what the Arctic sea ice is doing now, because it's not doing very well. I mean, we're in the Northern Hemisphere winter. It's February 4th, and the ice is pushing along at record lows, even compared to the previous 2012 record minimum. Okay, so let's look at some tools so that you can actually have a look yourself at what the ice is doing. So the best place to start, all the links to these websites that I'm showing you will be in the description of the video. So the National Snow and Ice Data Center, it's a part of CIRES at the University of Colorado Boulder. I've noticed a lot of these sites are putting their university affiliation. So, if they're government sites, they can still be kept in operation if they're within a university as opposed to just a government site. So I was just wondering that. But anyway, they've updated their site. And they talk about permafrost, glaciers, ice sheets, ice shelves, sea ice, snow, soil moisture, all these different things. And they give different, you can click on each of these links and have a look. And there's also different articles that are posted on a regular basis. So it's a really useful website to keep up to date. And I've clicked on a number of the links on this website. So this one here is called the Charctic Interactive Sea Ice Graph. And you can see, you can look for the Arctic or the Antarctic. So I'm looking at September, the Arctic sea ice extent, and you can see this red line is the record minimum in 2012. So it reached a minimum of about just under 3.4 million square kilometers on September 17th, it looks like, in 2012, and then it reached a peak of about on March 19th, March 20th, 15.3 million square kilometers roughly. So that was the record minimum. And look at where we are right now. This was the beginning. This is for 2025. And you can see where we are. We're missing a lot of ice. So right now we're here. This is February 3rd, yesterday, 13.432 million square kilometers, and we can compare it to the minimum. What day was that? February 3rd. We can compare it to just over 14 million square kilometers. So we're missing about 0.6 million square kilometers. And this curve, notice there's fluctuations, like this guy dipped, and there's movements if you look at any given year. This is the median from 1981 to 2010, but you can see there is structure. So, we're probably going to go back up and reach a maximum. I can't see us reaching a maximum above the 2012 record-setting year. But hey, I mean, one can imagine this thing just continuing to go down, and then maybe having a blue ocean event in the summer, the next melt season. Okay, so you can look at so you can look at the you can also look at what's going on in Antarctica. So you can see this is the record minimum here. It's less ice there than in the Arctic. The minimum I guess you could call it a blue ocean event in Antarctica if it goes under 1 million square kilometers. Anyway, pushing about 1.8 at the minimum, and here we are here. We're at 2.925 February 3rd and 2.192. So we're above the record minimum there. And, you can select different years, right? The green curve, right? Any previous years you can select and compare what's going on. You can put averages and so on. Okay, so it's a very useful tool, Charctic interactive sea ice graphs. I did a extent anomaly graph. So this is you can again hover the mouse over and you can see. So this is extent anomalies from 1978 or 79 to 2025. And you can see what's going on here. Okay, 2024. It's actually only 2024 data, so I don't know if it's why is it loading? Okay, so anyway, it's useful to play around with this tool to analyze sea ice. It tells you all the different things that you can measure and so on, and defines them. Okay, very useful tool. Another tool is the sea ice spatial comparison tool. And those things are all accessible. You can just Google them, or they're on the home page. Clicked on if you click down here on Sea Ice Today, read more. Is my computer really slow? How come? There we go. It's just slow. So Sea Ice Today, and I'll show you these maps and what it's doing. But if you scroll down, there's the Charctic tool, Sea Ice Analysis tool, and Sea Ice Extent Comparison. I'm not having much luck right now with the extent comparison. No data available for 2024, September 15th. Well, okay, let's compare 2020. Let's compare, we had a minimum in 2012, September 2012, so let's compare to a couple of years ago. Should be loading it now. Why is it taking so long? Okay, so anyway, sorry, I can't, it's not operating for me right now, but all of the stuff is there, and you can get a lot of analysis of sea ice from this website. So let's have a look. This is the Sea Ice Today chart or page, and we're looking at you can look at the Arctic and Antarctic. And so let's have a look here. So Antarctic, of course, we're in the summer down there, and we're in the winter here in the Arctic, of course. And you can do, this is comparison. This is sea ice extent and concentration, and the sea ice extent. So this is the 2011, 2012. This is a record minimum year, the dashed line here, and you can see we're again, we're well under it. This is 2024, 2025. I would be loath to say that this is a peak right here. I mean, we expect a peak way over here somewhere. So I think we just have to wait and see. And you can only tell when you're in the rearview mirror. I mean, you can see, you couldn't call this as a peak by mistake, right? Or you could and say, oh, that's probably the peak. And then, of course, it's going to recover up. So there is noise. So I think we'll be somewhere over here would be my best guess. Setting a record, so this would be the maximum ice extent in the Arctic. And if it's well below the year that we had a record low in September, then things are being set up to have an issue. So this is some analysis. So there's an article here. We can read more. Sea ice climbs to second lowest January. So they talk about the conditions in the Arctic, and they define, of course, the sea ice extent is the area of ocean with at least 15% sea ice. And they talk about the air temperature, sea level pressure. They compare January 2025 to previous years, and you can generate all of these plots using the tools that I've been showing you. So we can see the trend here, and you can see, if you just look from, say, this location here, or even this location here to present, and you could almost draw a flat line across there, right? But the overall trend is down. There's big fluctuation. And as we get closer to a tipping point, sea ice, I think you expect increased volatility, larger gyrations. Okay, Hudson's Bay finally freezes. Okay, typically freezes in mid-December, but it took a long time. This is open water, sea smoke, open water. Lots of interesting details here. So you see the sea ice here, and you need here's some information about pressure ridges up here in this region here, and in this region here. So there's a couple different. They take the density of the sea ridges. Of course, they show how it's being measured. You can get ridging of the ice pushing up against it. They're talking about Antarctic ice and so on. So there's loads of great material on this. Ringing in the new year with a warm Arctic. They again talk about the conditions, air temperatures and stuff, what December 2024 did to previous years and so on. Okay, so it's all there. Now, this is the article, Canadian article, McGill University in Montreal. So this just came out on January 27th. So last week, the last ice area in the Arctic could disappear much sooner than previously thought. So they're looking at what the ice is going to do and how it will impact biodiversity in the Arctic. Okay, so the Arctic's last ice area, it's a vital habitat for ice-dependent species. It might disappear within a decade after the central Arctic Ocean becomes ice-free in summer, which is expected to occur sometime in the next few decades, around mid-century. There's this new study by McGill researchers using a high-resolution climate model have found. Earlier, lower resolution models suggested that the last ice area might last for several more decades after that point. So we could have the Blue Ocean event, less than 1 million square kilometers, and that ice that is left would be tucked up against coastlines, and it could last for several decades after a Blue Ocean event. But this paper is saying, well, maybe not. Maybe not. They have a higher resolution model, and this region is important for Arctic ecology. It's a suitable habitat for ice-dependent and ice-obligate species, including polar bears, belugas, bowhead whales, walruses, ringed seals, bearded seals, and ivory gulls. Okay, so So in 2019, the Canadian government designated a portion of the last ice area located north of the Canadian Arctic archipelago, the CAA, as I won't pronounce this, Tuvai-Jayutuk Marine Protected Area. And so they're using high-resolution models. So these models can consider sea ice transport down through the Canadian Arctic archipelago, where the other models didn't have high enough resolution to do that. So anyway, their findings suggest the little last ice area may vanish much sooner than previously thought. Okay, so they show here last ice area. We'll have more detail. Okay, so they did the study. So let's have a look at the results. Revisiting the last ice area projections from a high-resolution global Earth system model. So read the abstract. The last ice area is just to the north of Greenland and the northern Canadian Arctic archipelago, the CAA, is expected to persist as the central Arctic Ocean becomes seasonally ice-free within a few decades. Okay, if it's under 1 million square kilometers in total, that's a blue ocean event. Projections of the last ice area have come from relatively low-resolution global climate models that don't resolve sea ice export and transport through the waterways of the Canadian Arctic archipelago and Nares Strait. So they use a high-resolution model, and it can resolve these narrow waterways. And they looked at a high-end forcing scenario, so high greenhouse gases, and basically in the worst case scenario, sea ice of the last ice area could disappear a little more than 1 decade after the central Arctic Ocean has reached seasonally ice-free conditions. And this loss would have profound impacts on species ice obligate. These species are obligated to live with ice. Without ice, they don't survive. Okay, so they talk about the QEI, Queen Elizabeth Islands, just areas north of the Canadian Arctic archipelago, the CAA, and Greenland, where some of the oldest and thickest sea ice accumulates, so it ridges up. Here, a perennial sea ice cover is expected to persist for some time period after the remainder of the central Arctic Ocean is ice-free in summer. And again, if it's under 1 million square kilometers, then it's a blue ocean event. So they call it the last ice area, the LIA. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's have a look at the figures. So this is a map. So this area here is basically this area here. This area is a smaller area, but you can see this is the last ice area, the red contour, as defined by the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund. So we've got the Queen Elizabeth Islands here in red, the region north of the Canadian Arctic archipelago, last ice area north in green, okay, and part of the Canadian Arctic archipelago in the south, yellow, okay. There's major gateways connecting this region to this region to this region, small channels, etc., different straits and things. Okay, let's have a look at some of the results. Okay, so what they're doing here is they're plotting, this is 1920 to present, to projecting out to 2100, and we're starting off. What they do is this is observed and simulated September ice extent, so that's the minimum. And the black dashed line is the 1 million square kilometer ice-free Arctic, as defined by the IPCC. I hope the IPCC uses my term blue ocean event at some point. Okay, so you can see there's different models here, are the different colors, and then there's an envelope of all of them, and they divide it up into the last ice area north. Okay, so some models go down to 0 by 2040 or so, and this is the Queen Elizabeth Island, the Canadian Arctic archipelago south. This will drop off more quickly because it's lower latitude, right? In fact, some of the models have it going to 0 already in that region. And pan-Arctic, another definition of a region. Okay, this is again, these different regions, and it shows, I believe this is simulated May ice thickness. Okay, so that's the ice thickness in meters. So here we are down here, anywhere from, this is 1.5 meters is this line here, 1.5 meters thick. So we've crossed that already. What we can expect, when we can expect to get below a meter and so on, pan-Arctic. Okay, and then they show different regions. And this is showing, what's this? This is simulated March and September sea ice area using dynamic effects. So this is including the motion of ice through the archipelago channels, and the heat thermodynamic sea ice area loss. So you can see what the different models and the so there's a lot of spread in the models. It shows it in in a couple different months. So March and September it's showing. So this is in the maximum period when the ice is thickest, and then the minimum period when the ice is thinnest. It shows how they're both dropping, but the minimum is dropping much faster in all the different regions. This is showing the seasonal cycle of sea ice area export through various gates in the Canadian archipelago, Nares and Fram Straits. Okay, so this is showing different exports through different channels and so on, for a year, January through December. And this is again sea ice area fluxes in the Queen Elizabeth Islands and Nares Strait, showing data on that. Okay, so it's very detailed, and this is interesting. Sea ice fluxes, where they get their data from. This is what's really interesting. The gate lengths, they call it. So this is the, I think, this is probably where does it talk about table 2? Okay, I have to search for it, but I think this is I think this is the width of the channel that the ice is flowing through. So they've got an accurate geography of the region, and their model is high resolution, so they can look at ice being transported through the different gateways in the Arctic. Okay, so it's a very interesting paper, and it just came out. Where's the date? It just came out. I think it just came out last week. I don't see a date offhand on there. Okay, if I click on this guy, it's published January 23rd, 2025. Okay. Okay, so interesting stuff on Arctic sea ice. It's not doing very well. It's not growing as thick as it's not growing as thick. Its volume is lower, and its sea ice area, the extent and the area, all those things are down over less than what we had on the record low year of 2012, which was closest to coming to a blue ocean event. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens as we head through next summer in terms of the sea ice. Now, I just want to show you a couple other things that I've been up to. So this is Meta Spencer's YouTube Project Save the World. Okay, so you can just Google Project Save the World, and you can find this interview. It's episode 656, COP and Us, where Meta was the host of the show, and I was a co-host, and we interviewed Nick Breeze to ask him all about his book that came out recently on COP, and what was going to happen with future COPs, etc. We went into great detail, and it went fairly long. Interestingly enough, Meta generates transcripts. This is all done using software. So, hi, I'm Meta Spencer. Today I think we're going to someplace in northern Spain. And then we'll talk to another friend here who's closer at home in Ottawa. Meta's in Toronto. And it gives the timestamps, and the whole interview is on here. So it's about an hour. She had to do a lot of editing because I think we spoke for a long time. We spoke for like 90 minutes plus. So she did a lot of editing. And what she does is she then takes this transcript and puts it into ChatGPT-4 and says, generate a 1,000-word summary on what was talked about in the video. And then it comes up with something decent, good summary, and then she edits that and publishes that to people. And she posts these videos on YouTube and on Substack as well. And I have to really start doing all these things myself. Why not? I mean, if Meta can do them, then I can do them, right? So that's a very interesting interview with Nick Breeze, my friend Nick Breeze, mostly about the recent COP in Baku, Azerbaijan, but also about Paris and previous COPs, and what's happening with the whole COP process. And the COP process is in the news because it's in Belém in the rainforest in Brazil, and they don't have enough accommodation, and people are trying to start booking accommodation for COP 30. It is. It'll be the first COP in the last three have been in countries where protests were restricted. So that kind of put a damper on it. And this one's in a place where protests will be plentiful, but it's very, very expensive and difficult. I know people that have booked Airbnbs at reasonable prices and they've been canceled already. And I've seen some rooms are going for they're like ridiculous prices, like 20,000 for a week sort of thing, which is going to price out everybody from going unless you're especially people from the global south more so. So COP needs to get their act together, the UN needs to get their act together and set up something to get people accommodation for people. And they're actually thinking of hiring a cruise boat and having a cruise boat and just having it offshore, and people stay on the cruise boat. I'm in if that's a reasonable price. But I can't afford to attend the conference at the way it's proceeding right now. But it's still 9 months off. Okay, so this is all about COPs with Nick Breeze, and then the previous week I had an interview with my friend Alex Smith on Radio EcoShock, which this is his website. It's excellent, loads of stuff. His programs are broadcast by 105 radio stations in 5 countries. So it's a radio program. It's not a video. And I'm on this one here it was posted on January 22nd. So this is it. It's called Mercury, Tears, and Climate Fears. He mentions me here. Canadian climate scientist Paul Beckwith and I thrash through the latest greenhouse news. Okay, and then if you scroll down, and I've already done that here, this is where it starts on me. So warming record smashed in 2024, heat as the red virus infecting maps of the world. I mean, it looks like a virus is taking over, right? We've just lived through 2 insanely hot years on planet Earth. And I attended a talk with James Hansen this morning, and he explains why this is happening with the reduction of sulfur from shipping fuels, and gives lots of interesting insights, and talks also about the AMOC. So I'll do a separate video on that. I'll cover that in great detail and give you the links to the talks, to the new peer review, the new paper that he's put out, and the video that I attended, and other information. There were other scientists talking about aerosols as well. Okay, so when I did this interview with Alex Smith, the big 5 climate tracking agencies all reported on January 10th about the last couple of years. So basically, he gives a link to my YouTube channel And this is a 40-minute interview, CD quality, and basically Alex has summarized what's happening. So, like the heat, so Copernicus, the European group, what they say, Berkeley Earth, right? They do it, and there's other ones too, right? More water vapor, 5% more water in the atmosphere in 2024 than the previous 2 decades. This is an astonishing amount of water vapor. Water vapor is the largest and most powerful greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Okay, I talked about China and what they're doing. There's the Blue Book on Climate Change of China, and their clean energy revolution, predictions, and so on. Okay, so it's all there. I often talk about the climate casino. By that I mean the chances of you getting hit by the next climate-induced disaster. These days, some extreme event can hit anywhere. So Hurricane Helene and the LA fires demonstrated that. Okay, so I talked about climate effect on inflation and insurance companies and so on. Basically, many of us see climate disasters on little movie clips or YouTubes or TikToks or whatever in places around the world. So that you've been hit by the climate casino when you're the person behind the camera taking that, and it's your infrastructure, your house. So all the reports we need with links are provided. Here, Alex put them in. Also, I have a video called Global Temperature Anomaly Skyrockets Upwards Like a Bat Out of Hell to as high as 1.62 Celsius, and I posted that January 11th. Okay, so the links are all here to what Alex and I were talking about. So I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with Alex Smith and his radio EcoShock, then please check it out. Okay, well, thank you for watching. Please considering going to my website, paulbeckwith.net, and going to PayPal and donating to support my research and videos. Thanks again, and bye for now.